What if the monster under your skin isn't an invader, but the only part of you that remembers how to survive? And the true horror isn't the transformation itself, but realizing you've spent your whole life trying to excise the very thing that makes you whole. In Lyla in the Flesh, Nick Roberts delivers a body horror novel that transcends visceral shock to become a devastating exploration of dissociation, female rage, and the terrifying reclamation of bodily autonomy. This isn't merely another creature feature with graphic mutilation. It's a psychologically precise narrative where every mutation mirrors emotional truth. Flesh becomes text, and monstrosity is reframed not as corruption, but as long-suppressed authenticity breaking through the veneer of compliance. From the first wet, intimate narration, listeners are plunged into a world where pain is language, and metamorphosis is the only honest form of communication left. Perfect for fans of literary horror and stories where terror serves emotional revelation rather than spectacle, this audiobook serves up relentless sensory immersion, unflinching thematic depth, and a protagonist whose journey from self-erasure to sovereign embodiment resonates with anyone who's ever felt alien in their own skin. When Lyla Vance begins experiencing inexplicable physical changes after years of performing perfection for her family and career, she expects medical diagnosis, not to realize her body is rewriting itself in response to decades of silenced trauma. But as her transformations escalate beyond clinical explanation, she understands this isn't illness, it's insurrection. Roberts masterfully avoids reducing body horror to fetish or Lyla to passive victim. Instead, he crafts a narrative where physical change is agential, where consent is negotiated with the self that was buried, and where liberation requires embracing what society calls abomination. The audiobook narration amplifies this embodied dread, capturing Lyla's fractured interiority with vocal textures that shift between clinical detachment and raw animal clarity, making every physiological shift feel like both violation and vindication. You don't just hear her transform, you feel the seismic rupture of a woman learning that her body was never broken, only obedient. What elevates Lyla in the Flesh beyond typical horror fare is its nuanced portrayal of somatic rebellion as feminist praxis rather than pathology. Lyla isn't merely losing control, she's reclaiming agency from systems that taught her to equate safety with invisibility, challenging the notion that femininity requires containment. Her relationships evolve through acts of radical reciprocity with herself, honoring urges previously deemed shameful, setting boundaries that protect both emerging identity and relational integrity, and defending her right to exist outside normative frameworks. Supporting characters add vital texture: loved ones whose concern masks discomfort with her autonomy, medical professionals whose diagnoses reflect cultural bias, even the urban environment itself, rendered as hostile architecture whose sterile surfaces reject organic complexity. Every interaction reinforces the novel's core truth. In worlds built on female erasure, taking up space is insurgency, and presence is the only cure. Even the horror mechanics serve thematic depth, with shedding skin mirroring emotional unmasking and new growth becoming metaphor for post-traumatic becoming. For audiobook listeners, this production is an immersive sensory descent into embodied truth. The narrator embodies Lyla's multiplicity with remarkable range, from polished professionalism to guttural emergence, while sound design enhances atmosphere without overwhelming intimacy. Distant heartbeats marking internal rhythms, rain against hospital windows during vulnerable confessions, the hushed squelch of transformation syncing with breath during moments of rupture, all anchor mythic stakes in tangible reality. Pacing mirrors the cadence of metamorphosis, deliberate during suppression and reflection, then surging with urgency as external pressures collide with internal eruption. Whether you're navigating daily routines or lying awake in darkness, the audiobook creates a portable chrysalis where isolation feels absolute and embodiment feels lifeline. It's storytelling as somatic validation, transforming passive listening into active participation in a journey where healing isn't about returning to normal, but about arriving at real. Ultimately, Lyla in the Flesh redefines body horror by centering female epistemology with visceral frameworks. It satisfies genre cravings for intense atmosphere and psychological payoff, while delivering substantive commentary on medical gaslighting, patriarchal aesthetics, and the radical act of trusting your body when culture demands distrust. No prior series knowledge is needed. It stands confidently as a complete emotional odyssey. If you've ever wondered whether monstrosity can coexist with humanity, or if true strength requires embracing the unacceptable, this audiobook will affirm that sometimes the most sacred act is letting yourself become what they told you never to be. Press play, sink into the flesh, and prepare to believe that even in bodies shaped by silence, voices still find ways to roar. Your next favorite horror isn't waiting in external threats. It's waiting in the brave, trembling choice to inhabit yourself fully.